So I'm not sure where to begin with this one, so I'll just begin. I was making a video about how Mewtwo was essentially Zacian 2.0. That's why the thumbnail is what the thumbnail is. This Pokemon has released incredibly broken. However, there is light at the end of the tunnel, and this tunnel is extremely short. It's like a doorway, it's so short. Mewtwo is getting an emergency nerf in less than a day, basically. I think it's less than a day since this Pokemon has come out. This whole situation, of course, makes me look back at the history of Pokemon Unite and some of the things that have happened or not happened fast enough for the community. Look, say what you will about Pokemon Unite, and I know some of you will say a lot about it. You're salty little dogs and you're salty all the time. Stop being so salty, you salty little dogs. But of course, I understand where the community is coming from, especially after the whole Zacian debacle. If you're just joining Pokemon Unite, you may not know exactly what happened here, but earlier in the year, Zacian was released on Pokemon Day, and the Pokemon was completely overpowered. Not only was it bugged, but it was also just absurdly strong, and it took a very long time to nerf, and yes, that is the correct amount of varies that I am using in that sentence. The Zacian situation was so prolonged and so upsetting to so much of the community that there were multiple sort of protests that took place. There was an open letter to the developers of Unite. There was a Unite for Change boycott that happened around the game. There were Reddit posts talking all about how they could fix Zacian and what was wrong with the game, and they just wished that the devs would listen to them. There were videos made by handsome YouTubers whose only fault in this world was having a mustache that was too healthy. What was I talking about? Oh yeah, Zacian. The developers clearly had an intention behind this Pokemon and an intention behind legendary Pokemon that was out of step with what the community wants inside their game. After release, it was mentioned that Zacian was going to be monitored, and that monitoring took a very long time, to the point where, ooh, I actually missed a very in there, very long time, to the point where finally, once this Pokemon actually kind of got brought down back to Earth in something that most people would consider the S or A plus tier, it had been months, and it had wreaked havoc upon the ranked leaderboards. Interestingly enough, around the same time, this Pokemon was banned from competitive play because it was so overtuned. This was really the most bizarre time in the history of the game where a Pokemon was so powerful that they recognized, albeit a separate entity essentially, the tournament organization around Pokemon Unite, recognized that this Pokemon was so powerful it would get banned out every single game, so there was no point in putting it into competitive play, while at the same time it was present inside of normal play inside Unite. So you, me, and everybody else has to deal with this Pokemon while those fat cats over at Team YouTube and Luminosity don't have to fight it at all. The whole situation was a mess, and it finally culminated in a producer letter just recently talking about the game design philosophy around legendary Pokemon and how they didn't want to have another Zacian situation in the future. I was very optimistic about the letter. I thought there was a lot of good stuff in it, and I think a lot of the letters that they have put out from the producers, they have held true on their promises. They said that they were not going to have another Zoroark situation where the Pokemon was released with a Hollowware bundle and that was the only way to buy it, and they have not had that since. They also have attempted to explain matchmaking, they've talked about the tournament series, they've talked about some of their plans for Unite, and this game has been updated regularly with new, exciting Pokemon. In a lot of ways, I feel like they have delivered on those promises, but of course, there was Zacian. So now once again, back to that producer letter that just came out, talking about their philosophy around legendaries, that they want these Pokemon to be incredibly powerful, while at the same time, they don't want these Pokemon to be so overpowered that there's nothing you can do about it. They don't want another Zacian situation, and while they want their legendary Pokemon to be extremely strong, they also want them to have some drawbacks so that you're able to sort of balance that situation. I don't think there was anything inside that letter that led me to believe they don't expect a legendary Pokemon to be powerful. Let's face it, if something like Zacian or Mewtwo came to the game and it was bad, that would be very confusing to say the least. But they also don't want it to be Zacian 2.0, which is exactly how Mewtwo released just about 9 hours ago as I record this. I got to play around with this Pokemon a ton on stream. It's incredibly powerful. It can do some absolutely bananas things. And I was honestly worried about the state of the game, seeing the power level of this Pokemon. And then, Before I get to fully make this video talking about Mewtwo being Zacian 2.0 and being very, very concerned about what they're doing with this release, we have an update that Mewtwo is getting an emergency nerf tonight. So Mewtwo will have been released and nerfed in less than 24 hours. This is faster than Sylveon was nerfed upon release. So this means that Mewtwo will be released and nerfed within less than 24 hours. Incredible turnaround time, and it actually looks like they're holding true to what they said in their producer letter. This is a fantastic development for Pokemon Unite. And don't get me wrong, I don't expect that every release we see from Pokemon Unite, if it's slightly overpowered or slightly underpowered, is going to see some sort of emergency balancing. I don't think that's going to be the case with a lot of their releases. However, this does bode very, very, very well for releases that are absurdly broken like Mewtwo is. I think the whole Zacian situation was a very difficult moment for the community in Pokemon Unite, and it hurt the trust of a lot of the players towards the developers of this game. They did not think that they had their best interests in mind, and it was hard to disagree with them because that situation was so bad for so long. But now we have this. A Pokemon that is releasing overpowered, however, in less than 24 hours it is being addressed. How deep will the cuts be to this Pokemon? Will the nerfs be enough? Look, I think there's no question that Mewtwo is going to sit in a very, very powerful tier upon release. They do not want this Pokemon to release and feel weak, but you could take a lot of the teeth out of this thing and it could still really bite. Right now, Mewtwo is absurdly broken, so any amount of pulling this Pokemon back would be greatly appreciated. I think when the producer letter came out, a lot of the sentiment was somewhat positive, some of it was somewhat negative, some of it was outright hostile towards me. Thanks a lot, you guys. All I ever did was have a great mustache. But I think for most of the community, one of the most important parts about the letter is just recognizing that actions speak louder than words. Are they actually going to do something if a situation arises? Are they actually going to nerf a Pokemon when it desperately needs a nerf? And if Mewtwo X is any indication, it looks like they are heading in that direction. I hope they continue to move in this direction, listening to their community, recognizing that we don't want something that is completely broken. And I might be wrong, but I'm going to give you my perspective on what we want in a new release, something like Mewtwo. We want it to be powerful. I would even say very powerful. We want it to be something that changes the game in exciting ways. And at the same time, we don't want it to be so good, so powerful, so unbelievable, so uniquely strong that not having it on your team is an absolute death sentence inside of a match. That is what I would like. When I think about releases that are very, very good, I think about things like Dodrio, a Pokemon that's extremely strong, pretty complex, and at the same time, if you don't have a Dodrio, that's okay. What we don't want in a release is Zacian, something that's so incredibly strong that not having one is an absolute nightmare, and then they put a comfy collar around it, and life is just miserable. I would love to hear your thoughts on all of this here in the comments. I have a lot more that I want to say about Mewtwo, but I don't think there's much that really needs to be said until we move on from this situation, see what the nerfs are like, actually play with this Pokemon after the changes, and kind of see how it feels. I think it's going to definitely be powerful, extremely powerful, but hopefully not so crazy. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. Yeehaw to you and yours. I'll see you all next time. Mewtwo. Okay. Oh yeah, and then there's Mewtwo Y. Mewtwo Y? Because you need to nerf it.